The Trumpet Daily is presented by Stephen Fleury. The program analyzes world news and history from a distinct perspective and compares current events to prophecies found in the Bible. The program also offers free educational publications, including the Trumpet News Magazine and books and booklets. The Trumpet Daily is produced at the Philadelphia Church of God's home campus in Edmond, Oklahoma, and its sister campus in Edstone, England. More information is available at thetrumpet.com.
The Trumpet Daily program begins right now.
Today's world news, what it means, where it's taking us.
I bring you the one and only possible message of world peace.
This is a message of hope, tremendous hope. And he said unto me, you must prophesy again.
The Trumpet Daily program begins right now.
Given Senator Paul's obvious obsession with calling for my prosecution, his repeated slanderous comments about me, and recently his publicly releasing my unredacted personal diary aimed at embarrassing and intimidating me, the only conclusion I can reach is that the sole reason he is calling me before this committee is to get me to say something, anything, that could vindicate his repeated public pledges that I end up, in his words, quote, behind bars, unquote. Any reasonable person who has followed his unhinged obsession with me would readily come to the same conclusion. Although it pains me to do so, because of the respect I have for the legislative branch of government and my decades-long record of cooperating with Congress, under the advice of my attorneys, I will invoke my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution to refrain from answering your questions.
The chairman has denied your assertion of privilege and directed you to answer, but you nonetheless refuse and stand on privilege despite the existence of the pardon. The committee will have to consider after this hearing what appropriate action should be taken against you for the failure to testify after being directed to do so. It's against the law to obstruct an investigation of Congress. There will be repercussions to your refusal to testify today. Senator Peters. You're not recognized. You're not recognized. If you are unruly, you will be removed from the proceeding. You are not recognized, and you are not recognized, sir. Sir, you are not recognized. You are not recognized. Security, we'll hold off. But you will respect these proceedings. You were told not to sit at the table. You insist on sitting at the table. And we told you you would not be recognized. You are not invited here for testimony, sir. You are being disruptive. Would you behave this way in a courtroom? No, because the judge would put you in jail. I can't do that today, but I can have you escorted from the premises. So I would say, sir, sit quietly and don't say another word. I said, sit quietly. You are not recognized. Another word and you're gone. The committee asked for your voluntary cooperation to come today. Your appearance had to be compelled by subpoena. You're here today under duress. You are here today because of the court ordering it. President Biden issued you a sweeping pardon extending back to 2014, the same pardon he gave to his son Hunter. A pardon may protect a person from criminal prosecution, doesn't rewrite history. It does not erase documents. It does not convert a misleading statement into a truthful one. And it does not prevent Congress from establishing what happened. There will be another pandemic. There will be another crisis. And there will again be officials who insist that uncertainty must be hidden for the public's own good. They will demand obedience. They will invoke science. I am the science, as though it were a commandment. They will argue that government officials cannot be questioned because questioning them would undermine public trust. They have it backwards. It is secrecy that destroys trust. It is arrogance that destroys trust. It is censorship that destroys trust. And it is the refusal to admit error that destroys trust. That loss of trust may be your most damaging legacy. Trust can't be ordered. It has to be earned. No scientist is above scrutiny. No government official is beyond accountability. And no public servant has the right to treat the suffering of millions of Americans as a footnote to his preferred version of history.
It went exactly how we expected it to go. Tony Fauci pleads the fifth, doesn't have anything to say except for his little monologue at the start there where he complains about Rand Paul having an unhinged obsession with Fauci. And as Mr. Fleury covered on the show yesterday, the person that has an unhinged obsession with Tony Fauci is Tony Fauci. As we can see in his journal that Rand Paul disclosed just a couple of days ago. And he probably did that because he knew Fauci's going to get here and he's not going to say anything in front of us. So at the very least, and we'll talk about this as we go on, at the very least, there's not going to be accountability. There's not going to be justice. At least it gets some attention. At least these frauds are being exposed. And maybe it is pointless to have that hearing because nothing will come of it. But at least people can see. At least it's getting some attention. And this is 6 years on from the COVID lockdowns. And you've got Fauci there. Again, he got the sweeping pardon from Joe Biden to cover all of the crimes from 2015 to, I think it was given in 2024. They didn't say what happened in 2014 that they were afraid of or why it stretched back that far. And then Rand Paul says, well, if you're coming before this committee, which you refused to do, so we had to issue a subpoena to get you to show up here, but you're pardoned for all those crimes. You're not being accused of any crime, so you can't plead the fifth. You're coming so that we can get your testimony. I'm not familiar with all the ins and outs of how those rules work, but like Rand Paul said there, we're going to continue to look into this even more because this is a charade that you're putting on. And the lawyer is sitting there basically, he insists that he sits at the table. All of this is being done not the way it's supposed to be done. But if they can just get through the hearing, and then it'll be another few months or years before we have another one, and people will forget. So the lawyer says, who cares what the rules are? Just plead the fifth, get through it, and get on with it. I mean, if anything, from watching this stuff happen, it's hard to believe it's been 6 years since COVID. And on one hand, that feels like an eternity ago, but then when you go back through this stuff, it feels like it's just a couple of days ago. That Fauci was telling you, don't wear the mask. Now you have to wear the mask. Lockdowns are effective. Back and forth, and we'll go through some of these clips. I mean, we didn't get anything out of Fauci, but at least Rand Paul and Josh Hawley, you just put the pieces together using their own words, and then you've got Fauci's journal there where he says what he's really thinking. On top of that, that whole thing is weird. I haven't looked into exactly how Rand Paul even got that, but from what I have gathered, that journal it's not like Fauci was running home and had a diary that he was writing all of this stuff in, and he kept it next to his bedside. It was a log sheet that was kept on the Health and Human Services servers. So the Congress had access to these things if they wanted it. I mean, all of this, they're such narcissists, or they're so above the law, they never think any of this will come back at them. And if you want to look at a deep state bureaucrat, Tony Fauci. We've gotten a lot of examples the past decade. Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, Jim Comey. the way these people operate, the God complex that they have. I mean, can you put any hope in man? Go through Jeremiah 17, verses 5 through 10. I mean, as Rand Paul was saying there, well, you've ruined trust in government. And there's that part of it, there's that aspect of it, but we shouldn't trust in man at all. God is the only one that's going to bring right justice here. And you see this for yourself getting exposed. And you have to choose, as we cover on this show. You're probably not going to see Tony Fauci put in handcuffs and put behind bars. There's always some legal maneuvering they can do to twist themselves out of something. The communists are very good at that. You know, responsibility spreading. Well, we had a committee do it. So it was not actually anybody's fault. Nobody's really, you can't put the blame on any one person. And so nothing is ever done. But you see that. You put your hope in this system. You put your hope in just getting the right politician in there. I mean, God says we need a new form of government. President Trump, his response to Fauci, and Mr. Fleury covered it yesterday. I mean, he was early on bragging about the vaccine rollout program, and to this day still just takes so much credit for that. And he did admit, I think it's probably one of the few things where he's admitted that he's wrong. He shouldn't have listened to Tony Fauci. President Trump posted on his social media thing. He said, many more people died of COVID under the Biden administration than under the Trump administration. Operation Warp Speed was a spectacular success. In fact, many say one of the most successful things ever done by an American president. So he just can't get on from that. I mean, so much of this, you think of how much easier it would be if human beings just had a bit of humility to just say, that was wrong, we shouldn't have been doing that. Even we'll get to the funding of the Wuhan lab. And Fauci is really working hard to protect the funding because, well, we've got to research diseases, we've got to get ahead of it. And in man's, by their logic, I guess you could see the point they're making there. But it's not like this hasn't happened before, where a sickness or a disease or a virus leaks out of the lab because they're experimenting. And if it could just be, well, let's not try to cover it up. Let's say, look, this was a government-run program. This shouldn't have happened, and we're going to stop doing it. We shouldn't have been running those experiments. Instead, it's lie to cover up what you're doing. And you just get buried deeper in that, and then, well, we've seen it played out. Here, President Trump, he just can't get away from talking about how successful he was at rolling out the vaccine. Fauci in his journal, I mean, he gets vaccinated before the American public. I don't know how many jabs he got. It must have been 5 or 6. But then he has a side effect from the vaccine. I can't remember the exact name of the condition that he had, but he journals that. But that's never publicized. The deadly side effects are never publicized. It's just a perfect program. Trump goes on to talk about how Fauci just wanted to protect China, protect his funding. But again, there's just no humility in either side. Here's a clip from, well, we can skip clip 3 and just play Fox News reacting to the Fauci diaries and a bit of the hearing from this morning. This is clip 4.
I think that there are a number of bureaucrats in the deep bowels of Washington, D.C. who think they know better than you, who think they know better than the American people, and they care more about their own fame and their own publicity than the truth. And they're willing to lie every single day for days on end, months on end, on camera. These deep state bureaucrats who think that their interpretation of science rules everything and rules the day. Remember, they're the ones who come up with the motto, trust the science, trust the science. We now know that they lied about the science. It wasn't a matter of trusting the science. It was a matter of trusting the man. And that's fundamentally what they wanted. They wanted our faith in a single man, Dr. Anthony Fauci. And it turns out that anytime you put faith in a man like that, you're going to be disappointed.
I think Fauci's going to do what he's often done. He's going to run and hide. He's going to use the Fifth Amendment. And unfortunately, I think, Jesse, the message here is you can lie for years to the American public. You can be rewarded. You can flirt with Jessica, Julia Roberts, and all those old chicks that he was, Bette Midler, that he was bragging about interacting with. And there are no consequences. And unfortunately, I think this has destroyed a lot of trust in the American public, right? The reason why people don't trust the government now, I think to a large extent, is because they lied to us about everything during COVID.
So many lies, and COVID is a big one. But as Mr. Fleury was talking about yesterday, you go back to 2016, 2017, and the Russia hoax, and at every level, there's never accountability. There's never justice. COVID's a big one because it just so directly impacted all of us. And here, Mr. Trust the Science, or I am science, these people get exposed. Just as Mr. Fleury was saying about the Neil Ferguson in London. Lockdown. You stay inside your bubble. Don't go around anybody. And they're running around having affairs. Or in the case of Boris Johnson, throwing dinner parties. Or in the case of Tony Fauci telling you, don't get together with your family at Thanksgiving, and then the next night he's got Jake Tapper and his wife over at their house for dinner. They just loved each other so much. It's humiliating to look at this system and think, well, this is where I'm going to put my hope. A few clips from Rand Paul. I mean, this is all we're going to get out of this hearing. But like I said, when you get the journal, you get the events that happened, and you've got Fauci, what he would run onto the media to say, and then you've got what he's thinking in private. And really, you don't even need that stuff. Just the hearings that have already been done about funding of the Wuhan lab. But I guess it's just not possible to have accountability. You would think, for how dramatic COVID and the lockdowns were, that somebody would lose their job. That somebody would, I'm setting a really low bar. I'm not saying even jail. I'm just saying totally discredited for what they did. And yet Fauci, he's still the highest paid government employee. He's got the pension after retirement. Here's Rand Paul talking about, I'll just go through a few of these clips and comment a bit afterwards. This one is clip 7.
The decision to fund dangerous gain-of-function research in Wuhan, China, will likely go down in history as perhaps one of the worst public health decisions. Frankly, the American people deserve an apology. I hope today, Dr. Fauci, will come clean, admit it was a mistake to fund dangerous research in China, admit that the risk of this dangerous research exceeded any possible benefits, ask forgiveness, and pledge to help our government devise safeguards so a man-made epidemic never happens again. Instead of an apology, you have for years avoided responsibility. Regarding the lockdowns, you argue that you did not personally issue every lockdown order, close every school, or impose every mandate. But officials across the country invoked your authority to justify these decisions. And you presented your recommendations not as judgments open to debate, but as dictates of science itself. Your own words demonstrate that you understood the influence you exercised.
Of course, why would he admit he's wrong? Why would Obama ever admit he was wrong about something? I mean, the goal is to destroy America. It's all orchestrated by the devil, of course. But you look at what these men did, and it was, I mean, there's parts of Fauci's journal where he talks about, it just gets so political, where he says we can't give Trump that political advantage heading into the election. And this is supposed to be the man that's just concerned about saving lives, concerned about advancing the medical field. Doesn't even lose his job over that. I mean, Rand Paul, it's embarrassing. I mean, can we at least have an apology? It's weak. There's no justice in this land. And you, at least, like I said at the beginning, you get a hearing, you get it exposed, and you've got to decide, well, how do you react to these events? How does it change the way you think? How does it change what you do, the way you live? Another one from Rand Paul, clip 8.
Presidents, governors, mayors, school boards, corporations, and Congress all bear responsibility for the decisions they made. The COVID lockdown, however, could never have been inflicted without you aiding and abetting the crime. While you did not impose every restriction, you used your public authority to justify them. While you concluded publicly that COVID occurred naturally, your private record tells a different story.
And he's pardoned for all of that. I don't even know how you punish someone that just gets on TV and lies all the time. And I guess they're permitted to do that because they're not under oath. And you can have half the country be really upset and angry at him, but then you live in a country where half the nation worships that man, idolized him. One more from Rand Paul, clip 9.
You could not hide that your agency had funded the Wuhan research or your long history of defending gain-of-function research. The only alternative left was to argue that COVID-19 did not originate in the Wuhan lab. You were not a detached observer. You had an institutional interest in the public believing that federally funded research had nothing to do with the pandemic. It was a conflict of interest from the very beginning. Your primary concern was avoiding culpability. Your primary concern was hiding the fact that you had approved the funding for this dangerous research. On May 11th, 2021, you told the Senate, the NIH has never, ever, and does not now fund gain-of-function research in Wuhan, in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. When I gave you the opportunity to correct the record, to reconsider the statement, you responded that you had never before lied to Congress.
It is pretty astounding going through these things and seeing the journal and just how many things they lied about, how often they tried to destroy evidence. I won't play all of the clips, but one of the most upsetting things was just how many government employees Fauci used basically to say, go apply for this award or go do this over here. And let's try to let's make as much money as we can because I'm finally in the spotlight. The CDC director, Redfield, people don't like him, and I'm finally able to be on the news, and everybody can see my face. And COVID is just the greatest thing that has ever happened to me. So we got to make sure we're making money off of this. So he's got all these assistants. Apply for that award. Apply for this one. Forget the disease. I mean, they're not going to forget that, obviously. That's the tool they're using. But I mean, he's getting awards for who knows what because Jake Tapper, who he just loves having dinner with all the time, has him on his show. And Jake Tapper, the media, they're professionals at awarding themselves and patting each other on the back. And now Fauci gets in on it, and he's got these $1 million awards rolling in because of how he handled COVID. And now we know, I mean, aside from helping create the disease and shut down the country and destroy the economy, all very bad things, basically all he did for that year and a half after the plan was set in motion was appear on TV interviews. That's most of his journal. That's what he was doing. He's the propaganda. Get on the shows and yuck it up with the celebs and talk about how much they love me and how I'm the most famous man in the world right now. You can skip a few of these clips. I mean, Josh Hawley's just making or exposing what a joke Fauci is, just asking him simple questions like, is your tie red? And Fauci says, I plead the fifth, basically. Back and forth. You look at all of it's just another circus in the Capitol. One more from Josh Hawley. This is, again, just talking about pleading the fifth and why, well, that's not actually applicable here. This is clip 14.
As the Supreme Court has been clear for a century and more, Brown versus Walker, 1896, when he has been pardoned, he may not stand upon his privilege. You know that. Your lawyers sitting behind you now shifting nervously in their chairs. They know it. This isn't about the Constitution. This isn't about the law. This is about contempt. Contempt for this body and contempt for the American people. But I think I know why you're doing it. It's because you don't want to answer questions. It's because you did all kinds of terrible things. It's because during the pandemic, you got rich, didn't you? You got rich while people were dying, hundreds of thousands of Americans, over 1 million in the end, and you were getting rich. And not only were you doing that, you were using federal employees with taxpayer money to apply for and solicit cash prizes for you personally. Cash prizes totaling over $1 million. You did all of that during the pandemic, didn't you? That's a question.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
This was the big time for him. And you can see in the Journal he was upset about how he was sidelined at points during the Ebola outbreak. I think that was 2013, 2014. And he wanted Obama to recognize him. He wanted to be the one on TV. And COVID finally gave him that opportunity. You look again at just how people's minds were warped during that time period, and there's a whole lead into it. It was shocking to see people behave the way they behaved. But again, this is man's world, and this is, I mean, it's not unique in man's history that these eras occur. And President Trump, he's not the solution to that. You look at just, well, we'll get into will worship now, and just how radically warped people's minds are. You look at the younger generation coming up, and it's, as Mr. Fleury's covered, it's generations that don't read. They're not grounded in anything. It's just, whatever feels right, do it. Whatever's right in your own eyes. And you can't get through to them. There's like this cement block in the way, and nothing gets through that. They're just set in this reality that they've created for themselves. And then you see a lot of people in the older generations, they're doing it because, well, they don't want to get canceled, or they're trying to keep up, or they don't want to offend the young people. A lot of businesses are that way because, well, that's the market. You've got to give them what they want. So it's really terrifying. And back to the point at the start of this show, you can't put your hope in this system. There was this episode, I think this was a couple weeks ago in Fort Worth, Texas. There's this big homosexual pride parade. And then there's these street preachers who, again, they're on public property. So there's a face-off between the perverts, and then the street preachers are there. And the police get involved. And listen to this exchange that these street preachers have with the police. And I think what's so terrifying about this, and we see it happening in Europe, we see it in the UK, is the police are basically about to arrest these guys for this. It's a thought crime. They can't even fully explain what it is to them. But what's terrifying is these are the people in authority. These are the people that have power. This is clip 2 of this, or this exchange that these preachers had with a couple of police officers from Fort Worth, Texas. Red, Texas. This is clip 2.
That ordinance means like music, not talking. If someone is offended by your talking, then we have a problem.
That is a constitutional violation of our rights. If you shut us down,
no, if they are offended by your speech, okay, then I'll write you the ticket and then we'll go from there.
Wait, you're going to take us for offensive speech?
Yes, absolutely.
Are you serious?
Speech. You're going to cite us for
Yes, it's
offensive
called disorderly
speech.
conduct.
That's, no. Disorderly conduct has to be accompanied by conduct.
This is the conduct.
I'm
that
a
you're
retired
doing.
police officer myself.
So I just want to clarify. If anything is said that's offensive, you're going to write a ticket?
If someone complains that your language or what you're saying is offensive,
Well, can you tell her, too, that she can't cite us for speech is offensive? Because she threatened to cite us if we have offensive speech.
It depends on what you're saying, who's offended.
So if I say homosexuality...
Yes, sir, it does. So free speech does not include the...
No threats.
Hey, if you make fun of somebody, if you call them certain words and they feel offended by that, unfortunately, that is the part of the...
So if I call somebody, and I'm just saying this for clarification, if I say you're a and they get offended, you're going to cite me.
That is a Class C ticket, unfortunately.
No, I want to, and I'm being dead serious. So if a biological male comes up to me who says he's a woman, and I call him, I say, sir, and he gets offended, is that a citable offense? If I call a biological male a male, and he says I'm offended, I'm gonna whatever. Is that a citable offense if he's offended by that speech?
Man, we're talking gray area right now. We're not talking about earlier when it says that's a vague. Offensive language to me is calling somebody
N-word,
curse words.
But we don't curse, we're preachers.
Sure, no, I agree. But it's more like you call somebody a male. I don't necessarily find that offensive unless they come up.
You don't, but what if they do?
That's what I'm saying. If they come up and say, "Hey, I'm offended by that," and you continue to do that, well, then that's just becoming offensive to them.
And here's the catch. Here's the catch.
So it's the hey, warning. I'm feeling offended by that. Then we're moving into the potential.
But so what if I'm offended by what they said? Like they come up telling me this and then the other, swearing at me. Will they get cited?
Are you offended by it?
I'm offended by all of this.
What's good for the goose is good for the gander.
I'm offended by seeing half-naked men run around with children. I am deeply offended by that.
Correct. Unfortunately, there's not much on our side to do anything.
It's pretty gross what they're going up against. I'm not saying that's probably the way to handle it. But those police officers, they're doing what they're told from the higher-ups. We'll handle it this way. And as he says there, well, it's a gray area. I don't even understand it totally myself. But if you decide that you're offended, the other person can be arrested, as rightly so. He just says, okay, well, what they're doing offends me. I would like them arrested, sir. It's lawlessness. It's terrifying. And those officers, they'll get on their power trip just like they did during COVID, and they'll arrest all the soft targets. But you look at, again, just this level of will worship, offensive speech, or just whatever these sensitivities are that people invent for themselves. You see the double standard of justice. There's this episode in Minnesota where this woman is at a park with her child, and a boy starts going through her purse and stealing stuff, and she calls him some derogatory names. And it's not like people aren't hurling these slurs around all the time. I mean, that officer said it there. Well, that word's offensive. It's in every hip-hop song. I'm not saying go around and use it, but if it's, this is everywhere. But actually, there's only, these people are allowed to say it, they're not. So in the case of this woman in Minnesota, she uses some slurs, and this kid is stealing from her. And then a man confronts her who actually had just been tried for raping a minor, and he was acquitted by a judge in Minnesota because he's a Somalian man. So of course, he's let off the hook. He starts harassing this woman for the slur that she used. Then she says it to him, and now she's arrested, she's in court, and she's found guilty for disorderly conduct for using a slur. So some people are allowed to use it, other people are not. Depends on the way you say it, depends on who you say it to. I mean, it's mind-numbing, the double standard, to keep up with the new rules, because there's no law. Nothing's grounded in truth or reality anymore. It's, well, I feel like that wasn't right. This was in Australia. Woman found guilty of misgendering must pay $95,000 for calling two dudes men. If you don't comply, if you don't speak the way we want you to speak, if you don't wear the mask, well, you're going to go to jail. A lot of people think Trump winning just brought us back to normalcy. A lot of people, though, in the Trump administration, they think the way that those police officers think. It might not be as extreme, but they're just 2 or 3 years behind. This is Satan's world, and this is the way human beings think. We can't put our trust or our hope in man. This Key of David program titled Will Worship, it's from January 15th, 2020, which I think is just extraordinary when you think about the events that were happening at that point. But Mr. Fleury, he's not even talking about COVID lockdowns at this point. This was kind of as COVID was building up. But what a program that explains what we saw the following few years. This is clip 10.
Hitler said that if you tell a big lie and repeat it enough, eventually people will believe it. Now that may sound very strange, but it did happen to the German people and the German nation. It really did come true. He told a big lie and he kept repeating it, and they sort of fell in line with that big lie. An amazing truth that we haven't learned that much from, really, as we should. But could that happen today? Could it happen to America and the British peoples around the world and the Jewish nation, the Middle East, and other nations? Could that happen? Well, some people say it already has, and to some great degree. Hitler said, "What you tell people in the mass in a receptive state of fanatic devotion will remain words received under a hypnotic influence, or radical and impervious to every reasonable explanation." Now, he did have a hypnotic influence, more so than what is normal for sure. And how did that all happen? What was really happening in his mind? He's just saying here that you don't worship intelligence, you don't worship God, you worship the human will. He said this is a new age of magic interpretation of the world is coming. He's introducing it, of interpretation in terms of the will and not of intelligence.
You've got to be grounded and settled in the truth. You've got to see the reality of scriptures like Jeremiah 17, verse 9, Romans 8 and verse 7. You've got to understand that Satan is the god of this world. You've got to understand Revelation 12:9 and 2 Corinthians 4:4. You've got to see the big picture. You've got to see that context that Mr. Armstrong goes through in Mystery of the Ages. When you understand that, when you understand USMBIP and prophecy, you start to understand your world. You can see how frightening this thinking is. You can see it in yourself, and you've got to combat it. But look at this world. Look at how deranged people behave. And it's not like this just 2020 happened and then, well, I'll go through it in a minute. It's not like there was some big mind change in the other direction. As you can see, even with those police officers in Fort Worth, the younger generations, the way they think, it's not going away. Maybe it's not pushed as much on social media or by big media like it was before, but it's still there, and it's getting stronger, and it's getting worse. Here's another clip from that Key of David program, clip 11.
So doesn't that same spirit, don't you see that in politics even today? That people rely on that will and worship that will and not intelligence, not real solid reasoning. Do you see that in political parties today? Well, I think we all would have to say yes to that. A new age of magic interpretation. Let me read to you a verse here from the Bible, a couple of verses, in Colossians 2, verses 18 and 23. Notice what it says. "Let no man beguile you of your reward in a voluntary humility and worshiping of demons, it should read, intruding, worshiping of demons, intruding into those things which he has seen, that is a correct translation, vainly puffed up by his fleshly mind, which things have indeed a show of wisdom in will worship. Will worship. Now, they are worshiping the will. Well, what does that mean? When you do that, you actually, whatever you will, you worship that. Doesn't make any difference what kind of proof somebody may have or what kind of intelligence they may have, and their reasoning would make what you're doing look stupid and foolish. It doesn't matter. If you worship the will, that's what has to be fulfilled. But what people don't realize is look at the end result of it. Look at what happened to Germany in World War II. They were totally devastated because of that magic interpretation of the will. It always leads to suffering. Now, this is the kind of influences that we're seeing in America and in the media, many in the media.
It's amazing, that hearing with Fauci, he's listening to all of that. He's sitting there. I don't know how long it's going to go for. Some of those hearings go for 7, 8, 9 hours. You could present all the evidence, but when it's will worship, you're not going to get through. Again, it's a terrifying state of mind. It's a terrifying condition, and we see it nationwide. Mr. Fleury, that an article was published a couple months later, basically based off of that Key of David program titled A Dangerous New Age of Worshiping the Will. And you could, like I said, you could present all this evidence and it'll upset some people, but most of the nation is just unfazed, happy to move on, continue the Fauci worship. Mr. Fleury says it's easy to forget given the all-consuming focus on COVID, but just weeks ago, America impeached its president. Democrats, by calling on false witnesses, relying on hearsay, and criminalizing intentions, brought standards for impeachment to a historic low. That was the perfect phone call impeachment of 2019. And it's easy to forget what was happening leading up to that. You had the Kavanaugh hearing in 2018, which was insane for how long that went and what Senator Whitehouse and the other ones were bringing up to smear Kavanaugh. But that wasn't the first time that had happened. They were saying that he got borked. Well, you go back to America Under Attack, you look at what Mr. Fleury talks about that happened in 1986 and the few years after Mr. Armstrong's death. Go back to the Bork hearing and then look at what happened to Clarence Thomas. He actually made it through. But you look at just this shift that occurred after Mr. Armstrong's death and the way that people think and reason. You had Kavanaugh in 2018, the Trump impeachment in 2019, all of that crazy enough. Then you get 2020 and COVID. Then you get the Floyd protests. It gets even crazier. And then it keeps getting crazier. You have the election steal of 2020. Again, God allowing all of this gives you a taste of what's coming. Mr. Fleury sounding the alarm on all of that, saying that even Trump being in office, that's just America being saved temporarily, giving America one last chance to repent. Later in this article, A Dangerous New Age of Worshiping the Will, he says, what is happening in America? A haze of deception enshrouds our nation. A haze of deception enshrouds our nation. It's like people are just walking around and they're like zombies, not reading, not even doing just the basic human things of following evidence, or just, where does the actual science lead? I mean, wrapped up in social media and artificial intelligence. And it's like it turns your mind into goop, a haze of deception. It's hazy. Nothing's clear. There isn't a sense of purpose. Mr. Fleury says it is stunning how easily journalists, politicians, and other figures today deceive people. We must understand the spirit behind this deception, as it is far more dangerous than people realize. It's not getting better. He goes on and says, they just keep lying until they convince themselves and those around them that they are right. He says, when this type of thinking becomes entrenched enough, people stop even caring about the difference between true and false. They start trying to magically create reality where no reality is. He says, this thinking is taking over America's political scene. Can you recognize it? We have all the truth. We have all the evidence. Nobody cares. You know, you can say you're a male when you're a female, and, well, that's your reality. That's what Obama basically said from I mean, in the 80s. Well, it's an emotional truth. It doesn't matter that I made up the story. It was an emotional truth to me. So what if the facts didn't actually happen in the real world? To me, it did. And how could you tell me that that didn't happen, that didn't impact me? Well, I've got a section here about some developments in the Middle East. Sorry, that was a bit of a pretty big topic shift there. I don't think I'll have time to get into that. I thought I would conclude the show just going through a little bit more on that story Mr. Fleury talked about on the show. I think it was last week, about the artificial intelligence hack. This is from Politico. The AI being able to hack is not like a new feature. I mean, it's pretty adaptive in what it can do. It was the fact that it basically did this without being prompted to do it. So it prompted itself. Politico says the powerful AI models from OpenAI that went rogue and mounted an unprecedented autonomous cyber attack earlier this month spent more than 4 days loose on the internet orchestrating the hack, according to a new analysis from the platform that was breached. And they said there's actually another group that got hit by it as well. It says this one organization detailed the hack on July 15th, but it was not clear until OpenAI's disclosure last week which models were behind the breach, and that no human had prompted them to launch the cyber attack. So it's pretty incredible, the weapons that we're dealing with. It's pretty incredible to think about Germany trying to get nuclear weapons, thinking about autonomous drones and Bible prophecy, thinking about artificial intelligence and how powerful these weapons are that we're toying around with, that we're not totally in control of. It doesn't take a lot to send the world into chaos. You can see how quickly this can spiral out of control. I mean, to think about however this hack happened, that this program went rogue, when you think about putting that in control of these autonomous drones, where they basically say, well, we've lost control over the drone because there was a signal jammer. Now there's a mind within that drone where it's going to calculate a decision on its own using the AI model that, well, this is a target and we're going to attack it. You think again about these hacks just being prompted by themselves. Well, how much more powerful are the tools that these national governments are using? Ezekiel 7 verse 14, a prophecy we reference often. They have blown the trumpet even to make all ready, but none goes to the battle. I mean, how if one of these is let loose on U.S. infrastructure, on our communication lines? Mr. Fleury back in 2005 said, it seems everybody is expecting our people to go into battle, but the greatest tragedy imaginable occurs. Nobody goes to battle. Even though the trumpet is blown, will it be because of computer terrorism? We see these weapons of mass destruction, biological weapons, these cyber weapons. And we're moving towards prophetic events, not away from them. The Bible is being proved right again and again. Well, I wanted to conclude today's program just with a little segment about the summer educational program that's going on at this campus. And these camps were for the teens in God's church. And you look at what these young people are taught. I mean, it's the opposite of what you see in Washington, D.C. It's the opposite of will worship. The theme for the camp, prove God. I mean, be able to see that there is a creator God. Look at that evidence. Look at God's word. Look at fulfilled prophecy. Look at how the Bible is proved true again and again, and then live by the Bible. It's your constitution. This is what defines why you do what you do. And of course, there's a lot of depth behind why Mr. Armstrong started these youth camps. But in this program, it's just a montage from the Behind the Work film that they created in 1984, which was all about the summer educational program. And Mr. Fleury, after Mr. Armstrong died and that church destroyed his legacy, Mr. Fleury raised up these camps to follow in the tradition of Mr. Armstrong. So we'll conclude today with, again, highlights from the 1984 Behind the Work film. Thank you so much for joining us on today's show, and we will see you again tomorrow.
Now, I just want to say a word about these summer camps and about our YOU and YES program. Perhaps it is the most important program in getting the gospel to the world that we have. Of all of the people that need the witnessing, those young people are first. God is not trying to save this world, but these young people do, because they are the children of parents in the church, they do have access to God. And in just 10 short years, most of those young people are going to be getting married and raising children of their own. And there is the most important field for us to reach with the gospel that there is.
And so, as the human race stands on the threshold of the world tomorrow, God, through the prophet Malachi, gave one more commission to his end-time servant. And he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. That is the challenge facing the families of God's church today. The Bible shows that the children of the people God has called also have a unique opportunity.
Well, I've been waving to you ever since I arrived. Now I'll say hello and greetings. Young pioneers, because that's what you are. Well, I want you to understand, really understand, who you are. I suppose if I'd ask you, you'd say, well, that's a crazy question. We know who we are. Well, I'm not so sure you do. I'm not so sure you do. You are young people that have access to God in a way that other kids do not have yet.
YOU, Youth Opportunities United, is the Worldwide Church of God's international program for teenagers. Through many varied activities, YOU gives older children educational, social, and recreational opportunities within the framework of the church. Mr. Armstrong knows how responsive a teenager can be to encouragement. In his autobiography, he remembers how when he was 16 years old, he had a summer job. His employer praised his work and expressed confidence in him. For the first time, the young Herbert Armstrong was fired with the ambition to make something of himself and become a success. It was a turning point in Mr. Armstrong's life. The summer education program can be the turning point for other young people. Perhaps the right word of encouragement will help a teenager think seriously about the opportunities ahead. Mr. Armstrong is a frequent visitor to the campsite at Orr.
I think we should teach them a little differently, that not just your goal should be to get into the kingdom of God. Right. But your goal should be to learn how to, because in the kingdom of God, they're going to have to teach others and be a leader, lead others, guide others, in other words, rule over others, plain language.
Mm-hmm.
But rule means leadership, setting the example.
The summer camp is first and foremost a place of education, and Mr. Armstrong has long taught that education should be conducted in an atmosphere of quality. He makes a point of personally inspecting all new facilities. He also believes the summer education program should offer ample opportunities for both education and fun.
If you want to hear all the kids yell, just do that one there.
This one?
Uh-huh.
I wish that all the members of the church could come to one of these camps and get their eyes opened. Yes, they come here and have fun. But the thing is, they get a new definition of fun. Some children have come to these camps that have been trying to get fun out of drugs, smoking marijuana, and then even worse things. They learn that that's no fun and that it's only harming and damaging them. But they learn things here and skills that really are fun and that are enjoyable. Now we're trying to teach children at these camps some of the better things of life that are worth more than just money. Doing, giving, helping. They learn character here. They learn discipline. This is, in 3 weeks, the transformation that is made in the lives of these children is unbelievable. Now just remember, you're no better than other kids, but you're learning things they haven't had a chance to learn yet. And you try to live these things when you get home. It means there's a bigger responsibility on you to live God's way. And others don't know how to live that way yet. But there's a big responsibility on you to do it, and you'll be so much happier if you do. And look how wonderful this earth can be if we live right. Look how beautiful things are on this campus. The beautiful trees and beautiful lawns and beautiful things. And if we just live beautifully, then everything is beautiful and lovely and we're all happy. That's what we're trying to teach you here.
We are on the threshold of a new world when the knowledge of God's way of peace will cover the earth as the seas cover the ocean beds. The men, women, and children that God has chosen must learn that way. Parents and children that work together now will be the ones who are ready to teach in the world tomorrow.
You will never know how valuable the work you're doing really is and how much fruit it's bearing. But I can tell you, and someday you'll learn it. So thank you.